Well, that's a kick in the teeth, isn't it? All right, Evan. That was a football game. Ended with some things that are,
What's
hard to
worse?
justify.
What's worse? Spiking it on 3rd and 1 or throwing to a guy that doesn't turn around in the end zone? Which one is worse?
I think this is worse. The guy not turning around the end zone was AJ Green. And AJ Green was still, I don't know, he's not, we're not hitching our wagon to him for the next however many years. It was a mistake. You want the quarterback's a guy, we're leaning on, we're building this team around. So this is a team that's 4-0, 5-0 now. And this is a game. This could have been a statement game for the Cardinals, right? I mean, coming out, beating a 4-0 team. And right now we're fresh on kind of the disappointment. So what I'm about to say is not going to resonate with many people. I still think coming this close and not getting blown out is a positive sign. I know it doesn't feel like that right now against a really good team, but we had a chance to win this game, right? So yeah. And then, having to rely on a kicker, and yeah, that's frustrating. So hello, everyone. Welcome to TCR Postgame. I know we're all frustrated. I blame Silver Wolf for jinxing it, right? He knew the Cardinals would win. Jinx. It's your fault, Silver Wolf. Just kidding. We got Tony Height jumping in. Thanks for being here. Well, that was rough. A lot to like, a lot to be frustrated with, and we'll talk about a lot of that, the good and the bad. We got Marcus Lingori here. Thanks for being here. That's on Cliff and Kyler. Mostly yes. Kyler. I think you're probably right. And people who kind of watch the videos I do a lot know that I'm a big believer in Kyler. I'm a big defender of Kyler. But there were some mistakes on him for sure. And we'll get into those. Nick L, come on, man. It's 43 yards, right? Tanner Seymour, man, I miss Matt, right? Matt Prater. We got Bobby Moore here. Come here for some therapy. Frustrated. I hear you. We're part of therapy is venting. So we're gonna vent some, and then maybe towards the end we'll talk about some silver linings a little bit more. Lord Dane, Kyler slid too early. Dang it, right? And we were back here behind, in the studio before we went live, and Evan and I were both talking about it, and Evan was like, man, 3rd and sliding, he slid and then spiked it on 3rd and 1, right? And that's the spiking it is also, and I know the time's running out, but you got to get a quick play and get those yards, right? Defense is underrated. Yep, for sure. The Carolina Crown is MF cost us the game. Ease no steroids, another chance to change the narrative, another wasted opportunity. Runner up, crazy good chance to win if Kyler dives for the first down, right? A lot of the other folks in here. Let's see, Buzz, Bucks ZW, bad decision by Murray, but that kick was just awful. I agree. This team showed they can play with the best team in the conference, right? We got Drew McOrder, Payne. I feel that. Tim, damn, right? Yeah, 100%. GW, wow, Kyler slip sliding away, right? We got Omni King. That pass should have been a bullet pass to Zach, not a floater. Or the one he threw off the back of his foot. And we'll talk about that a little bit for sure. A couple other folks. We got Honker Fickle dude. Okay. What I'm really pleased with our defense thus far. We have been pretty consistent, not getting letting huge plays get by. I agree with that. The defense actually played pretty well. Aiden, I'm flabbergasted. I feel that. Jason Krell, I still feel like Cliff is holding Kyler back. Why didn't Kyler run more? I mean, when he ran, he was really effective, right? We can criticize him for sliding too early, but it was still a good run, right, on that play. We've got Ryan B. Trahan. That was a great effort. It's still lost, but we finally played a complete game. We got JP. We hired Cliff to blow up the score. Another choke job by Cliff. MGO with a super chat. Thank you so much. Man, not that mad. We almost came back to the undefeated Eagles, right? And that is a silver lining, right? That this team, a lot of people thought Cardinals were going to get blown out, and that didn't happen. They were in it. They blew an opportunity to change the narrative, right? But they kept it close. Obviously, want to thank you for that super chat as always. Took me a second to get there. Okay, so we went through some of the comments. We'll get to some of the comments a little bit more in a minute. Evan, man, dude.
You got the awareness. Okay, here's one thing that I've been really harping about. It's one thing just to not be able to execute on plays, right? It's another thing when you're coming out of timeouts or the very first play of the game and you get a false start to have to burn a timeout, right? They didn't do that this game. We did not see that. They improved on that. But then something as egregious as 3rd and 1 and you spike it happens. The awareness of our coach and our quarterback in critical situations is mind-boggling. And the time that Cliff Kingsbury should have done some Madden stuff and ran Eno up the middle and then go and spike it or something to have 15, 16 seconds left on the clock at that point. This is the time where he doesn't do that and he chooses to kick it with a kicker that isn't even Matt Prater. I was astounded that this happened. I will give Cliff credit. He did go for the field goal at the end of the first half and resisted the temptation. What was it, like with 3 seconds left from like the 6 or 7 yard line or something like that? Like he went for the field goal like you're supposed to do, get the points and everything as well. I mean, the defense played good enough. If you told me we're holding the Eagles to 20 points, I would have told you we would have won that game, regardless of how good they looked the very first 2 drives of the game. There's a lot looking forward to this, but man, when you have an opportunity like this to win at home against a away crowd, you have to take this opportunity and salvage it. 3rd and 1. Yeah. Nobody had the balls to look around and be like, yo, Kyler, no. Like, take the extra 2 seconds and like, no, what are you doing? No. Incredible. I mean, you saw him going like this for a while. You saw him do that 5 or 6 times, like as in throw it down, spike the ball. The awareness is mind-boggling, Joe. And I can't get past that right this second. So feel free to take me off the stream for a while.
No, man. Listen, I feel that, you know, I mean, I'm still a believer in Kyler. That was a mistake. I still believe, you know, Kyler can do things other quarterbacks can't that put us in that position to have that chance, but that's still, you know, that was absolutely a mistake that cost the game. So it's, you know, you have every you know, right to legitimately be frustrated by that. Right. So I feel that. So yeah, that was frustrating. Talked about though, like, you know, there was the wide open throw to Zach Ertz that he overthrew. He threw on the back of his foot, but he was under pressure, but he wasn't in the grasp or anything like that. Yeah. So it feels like he had enough time to get a little bit better throw, and it was just an off throw. And he usually makes those. So that was weird. He's usually actually pretty good on those kinds of throws. That could have been a difference. So yeah, that's definitely very frustrating. So that, you know, the time management at the end there, you know, I mean, they did a good job driving, but yeah, with that spike, that was just frustrating. All right. So we talked about the end. Let's kind of reset and talk about our observations from the game overall. Right. So let's kind of go back and forth a little bit with some of our general observations. Evan, what's one of the first things that kind of stands out to you from the game, or one of the first things you observed in this game?
Not scoring any points in the first quarter again.
Yeah.
You know, I saw this tweet a couple times, is that I forget the term because I'm stuck in my emotional head right now.
Right.
But they scripted all the plays, right? The first 10, 12, 15 plays, whatever that may be. They just need to stop scripting plays in the first quarter, man. Stop scripting anything. Just go based off of feel or something, because that's what Kyler says. He just goes off of feel, because what they're doing is not working. If they would have scored anything in the first quarter or on the first 3 drives at that matter, we wouldn't have been in this position to begin with. We'd have been going for it for a win. Maybe we wouldn't have kicked the field goal at the end. I don't know. But look, figure it out in the first quarter and a half, man. We have to figure that out, because we're not going to be able to overcome every single time. With that being said, the way that this team does resist and fight back is definitely something to keep an eye on. You know, we're never out of a game. We can come back. I'm not even counting week 1 because week 1 doesn't even matter once you get to week 18, right? So that's impressive to watch. And I just want them to score points in that first half, man. We had 10 first half points on the last 2 drives, right? We had 5 or 6 drives overall. Like, just find a way to score the first time, you know? And then the play calling on that and Rondale Moore, I really want to get into, but that's my first general observation.
Well, and you're right. You know, they didn't score in the first quarter. They did score in the first half, which is, I guess, that's kind of an improvement. You know, but it is the same kind of thing with this offense. They're coming out sluggish, right? And then they're having to play from behind in the second half. They have played better in the second half this year, typically, or historically, through most of the games. So that's worked in a couple of games. And, this game was set up right nicely. When you look at it, like if you told me we could go into halftime being down 14-10 against the Eagles, knowing that they are not good in the second half and we are, I would take that, right? It's set up nicely in terms of how how things have gone for the two teams, right? But they didn't take advantage of it. They tried. They did technically outscore the Eagles. Looks like in the second half, 7-6, but it clearly wasn't enough, right? So yeah, my first observation is that the Eagles were picking on Marco Wilson, especially in the first half. They really went at him. They were targeting like AJ Brown, like in the first quarter. Like he had like 4 or 5 targets again, AJ Brown did being covered by Wilson, and Wilson gave up quite a few receptions early on. There was one that Brown dropped that would have been a reception. So that was working early on. This defense did kind of settle in, but Wilson's interesting because he doesn't grade well. When you look at the tape, he doesn't look well. In terms of he doesn't play well consistently. Yeah. Yet the defense, now I'm going to credit Vance Joseph's defensive scheme for all the criticism he's gotten. Despite his struggles, the team doesn't get typically blown out by receivers. It's, in fact, even against Kansas City, it was more the tight end that really, kind of did more of the damage. And they somehow seem to be able to cover up for that. But man, Wilson had a really tough first half.
The other thing, the screenplays killed us today, especially in the first 2 drives and even later with Goddard. I mean, those screen passes, whether it was a tight end screen pass, a wide receiver screen, a running back, like it didn't matter. The screen plays killed us. And after the first 2 drives, it really felt like we were able to diagnose those. But on that last final drive that the Eagles had, where they just took all that time off the clock, they just killed us with those short little plays and short run plays. Interestingly enough, we had almost the exact same amount of plays, yardage, first down, everything. But Joe, they had almost a 10-minute advantage with possession, 34 minutes and 40 seconds compared to 25 minutes and 20 seconds. So 9 minutes and 20 seconds advantage for them. That was a killer for us today.
Yeah. Cardinals dominated the time of possession last week, right? But the Eagles are kind of an offense that grinds it out too.
Yeah, different team too.
Sure. But it really kind of shows how much that kind of can matter. They really, their offense, just especially in this game, really just grinded it out, right? Screen passes, running. Man, if I see one more Jalen Hurts quarterback sneak, I think I'm gonna, be sick.
If I see one more Goddard 7-yard screen pass that turns into 14 yards.
Yeah. Robert's saying that he said time position was a key to victory in one of his pregame kind of predictions. So yeah. So it seems like that worked. That ended up being the case. And I do want to point out, like, we don't stop the run enough when we have to, but we are better against the run than we were last year, it seems. But there were a couple plays in the second half where we really needed to do that, where we didn't. We just couldn't stop Hurts on those quarterback sneaks. I want to build off what you said. You said the screen passes killed us in terms of the Eagles with their screen passes, and they did, a lot of them to the tight end, Goddard. And yeah, they were really, but the screen pass killed us on both sides of the ball because our screen passes are in the first half. I think we were talking about this Rondale Moore getting a lot of those passes behind the line of scrimmage. In the second half, they started to get more effective. They actually used them well. But in that first half, man, there were a couple drives that were stalled out because of either screen passes or jet sweeps or something, trying to get the ball to run in more behind the line of scrimmage, and he'd lose yards and stalled out a drive, right? So the screen passes were an issue for both sides of the ball this game.
Facts. Is it the design of the screens that we're doing? Are teams just prepared for it? They know it's coming whenever Rondale Moore is in. I mean, why are literally no type of screen pass seems to be working for us this year, when last year I felt like it was highly effective?
Yeah, I do think in general this team is good at designing screen passes. I think that is actually one of, for all the things we want to be critical of, I think that is one of Cliff's strengths in knowing how to design good screens. I think the problem is they've been using Rondale Moore in such a gadget way, in terms of role, and not sending him out, that when he's on the field, the defense just kind of keys in, oh, something's going on behind the line of scrimmage, and it's all too predictable. So that's what I think the problem is, that they're making it too easy for the defense to key in on Rondale Moore, because when he's in there, that's what they expect. Oh, there's going to be a jet sweep, or watch Rondale Moore if he's moving. Once they got the offense going a little more, and you saw they threw it to Rondale Moore a little more down the field, not deep down the field, but he got stuff down the field real quick, more, and then they worked a little better. Yeah.
Bo Brock just tweeted this. He said, for what it's worth, the scoreboard had it 1st and 10 after Kyler's slide.
Okay. So
that's a tough pill to swallow then there. That's tough. Damn.
And I had to wonder, because Kyler, why would Kyler, we kind of came at Kyler for spiking it. And when it happened, it felt like he thought it was first down. Man. So
that's kind of definitely that reshapes my whole argument then, right? I mean, who's the scoreboard manager? We need to talk to them and fire them. How about the awareness of them? Lord Almighty. I mean, but at the same time, the clock's winding down. Kyler plays at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Isn't somebody in his ear talking to him from upstairs? Isn't anybody looking to the sideline judge to see if they switch the play from 3-1 or 3-4? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, there's someone supposed to be telling that.
Robert, no, he didn't get the first down, but the scoreboard in front of him, the big one, said it was first down.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll have to check that out, man. If that's the case, we're going to be hearing about that a lot. In fact, that's one of those things. I mean, Cardinals still need to. So it was Bo Brock who tweeted that out. That's still one of those things where you still have to do better. I get, in terms of the coaches setting that down, but that's a confusing thing. And when you're in that kind of crunch time, he's probably relying on that scoreboard. That is a tough pill to swallow, right?
I almost feel like we didn't give that game away now at that point. Like he legitimately thought it was. It's almost like the meme from 2 or 3 years ago with Tom Brady, and he holds up the 4. Isn't it 4th down? Is it?
Right. Surely the kicker gets cut during the post-game press or something. I mean, listen, that kicker is not on the roster once Prater is back, right? And listen, Wolf saying payback from the Vikings game last year. And I will say, I actually kind of agree with this, because here's kind of my take on it. As much as that's frustrating that scoreboard read that way, I'm not going to say we got robbed. We should, we don't do whatever, because you have to take the good with the bad, right? We won a game last year when the Vikings field goal kicker missed a kick that he should have made. It was kind of a chip shot, and the Cardinals won. And I know there are some Vikings fans who were saying, "Oh, that's you guys didn't really win. We won, or whatever. You didn't deserve to win." And I'm like, that's what the game ends the way it ends. And sometimes things go the wrong way. And even if it's a bad call, I mean, I'm going to be frustrated about the bad call, and I'm frustrated now hearing about that, that scoreboard thing.
Yeah.
But it's a loss, I'm not, so we have to look at it that way, right? So yeah.
Let's get to some good things, because
Okay.
we didn't get, as you said, we didn't get blown out,
Yeah.
right? I was afraid of getting blown out because I kind of thought last week's game against Carolina was more of a mirage, because that team is just not good and falling fast. You see them losing today. You look at the rest of the NFC West right now. Everybody else lost except for San Francisco, who played a weak team this year, and Jimmy Garoppolo did not look good. Keep that in mind moving forward. We have a chance against our second game against the NFC West against Seattle next week. Seattle is looking great on offense, defense, who knows what's going on there, but we have great records up there recently up in Seattle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So look for us to kind of turn the corner a little bit in that game. I'm also going to be looking at the injury report. What's the status of Rodney Hudson and James Conner? But I got to be honest, Joe, our interior line on pass protection at least looked a little bit better without Rodney Hudson. I don't know about the run game. I kind of tend to focus on watching the line now, the interior line, when the snap is going, when we're in shotgun. So I really don't watch the run plays as much from the line. What did you think?
I mean, they only gave up 1 sack, and it was on Kelvin Beachum, right?
Oh yeah, he just got beat by Hassan Reddick.
Right. So when you look at it, I think you're right. Rodney Hudson, it's funny, like last year throughout the season, Rodney Hudson's PFF grades were always kind of low, in the 50s-ish, 60s-ish. And a lot of people said, oh, PFF doesn't know what to do. And I know there's criticisms of PFF. I worked part-time at a very low level doing like data stuff with them. And I don't know everything about what they do, but I've seen how their processes are, and they're meticulous. They're not perfect, but they're meticulous. So I tend to be a defender of what they do. But people kind of came at PFF for their grades being wrong because of Rodney Hudson. But he struggled this year also, and his grades look the same. He's good. I think, he knows how to shift those adjustments, the blocking assignments. He knows that stuff. But you have to wonder if maybe he is kind of losing, something, losing something on his fastball, so to speak, being a little bit older. And I mean, I don't know. And it could have just been a fluky game that the person who was it Harlow who started may have just had a good game. Happens, right? But yeah, I am a little worried because like those PFF grades for Hudson have been consistently middling since he's come here. So you have to wonder if maybe there is something to that, right? So yeah, but like you said, we want to look at some of the positives, the basement reviewer. I know we lost, but I'm proud of the Cards. We fought harder than we have the rest of the season, right? This is a game where there are some silver linings, and we're going to kind of talk about that a little bit. So, one of the things I want to start with is that in general, and I know we've said this defense played well. In particular, the interior defensive line did a good job. J.J. Watt and Zach Allen, we can talk about them a little bit more. But coming into the season, this defense, everyone was worried about the defense, right? Because losing Chandler Jones, and not getting the a number one cornerback like we wanted, not bringing in a veteran pass rusher, not bringing in interior defensive linemen, and they got blown out against Kansas City. But I think there's going to be a few teams get blown out by Kansas City, and people are like, see, we have the worst defense league. But then they start kind of tightening things up, right? And then we're giving up 23 points, 20 points, right? 17 points. It's like, it's not necessarily a defense that's dominating, but like this defense is starting to look like it did last year when it was like kind of like a top 10, but a back end of the top 10. I'm not saying that they're yet, but they're starting to creep into that middle of the road kind of defense, and playing, against, again, a Philadelphia Eagles team that was 4-0, playing a pretty solid game. So I think that is one thing to look at in terms of positives. What are your thoughts?
No, I completely agree. I mean, again, out of everything we've talked about, the way that they're able to get punched in the mouth and come back and then only give up 6 points in the last 2 quarters of the game in the second half, that's something that championship teams do. is that they're able to adjust. I mean, they didn't adjust enough. We still gave up 350 yards of offense, but the points weren't there, and the points are what matters. But at the same time, they killed us with the time of possession. They were 6 of 13 on third down, which I think is a positive for us for sure. I mean, 7 of those came right back to us, right? So there's a lot of positives. You look at Isaiah Simmons getting 13 tackles. That's awesome. Byron Murphy had 9 tackles and a pass breakup, and some nice open field tackles too. Antonio Hamilton was out there. He got a tackle as well too. So it's good to get him back, get him moving a little bit more. And then you saw Zaven Collins all over the place, but Zach Wilson and JJ Watt were the destroyer of worlds up front. And man, we better be on top of signing Zach Allen left and right. Marco Wilson, you're right. Marco Wilson got picked on left and right. And I'm wanting to see less and less of him. You know, I really thought after last year, like, oh, he's a rookie. He was right there for so many plays. Like his hands would hit the ball and they would still complete it. Like, he just had a lot of bad luck last year, I thought, but he had that swagger about him. He had that meanness, that junkyard dog mentality, and he's just been picked on this year. So hopefully Antonio Hamilton coming back and maybe bump him down a little bit, and get like the third wide receiver where he might be able to grow a little bit more confidence. But I love what I saw from Isaiah Simmons today. When was the last time you said that, other than like the game-winning play against Seattle or the Raiders a couple weeks ago? When was the last time we were like, damn, he played good? Because he played a good game today.
Right. Yeah. No, a lot of tackles. I think there was one play where like he was supposed to cover Goddard and had like an RPO, and he kind of let Goddard kind of go to get open. But aside from that, he had a nice tackle that didn't end up mattering much, but Jalen Hurts was trying to run to the sideline to get a first down on second and short, and he stopped him and forced a 3rd and 1. They ended up converting the next play. But yeah, I think, and to your talking about the tight ends, Marco Wilson, listen, I know there are people who say cut Marco Wilson, he sucks or whatever. And listen, he's a 4th rounder. Marco Wilson's a great guy to have as your 3rd or 4th quarterback, a guy who's had a lot of playing experience, has the physical tools. If Trayvon Mullen, he wasn't active. He's had a setback with the injury. So that's frustrating. He's a talented guy. We need to get him back. But, if late in the season we had Byron Murphy Jr., and we'll talk about him more, had a heck of a game. Byron Murphy Jr., Antonio Hamilton, and if Trayvon Mullen can get up to speed, and if Marco Wilson is that 3rd or 4th cornerback, that's better than like a Breon Borders, right? At that point, right? You just don't want him to have to be your number 2 cornerback, right? At least not until he takes some strides. So I want to see less of him. I want to see more of Antonio Hamilton. I'd love to see Trayvon Mullen get healthy and see what he can do. And then have Marco Wilson being that guy, who we can have kind of as a depth guy. And if your 4th cornerback has started as many games as he is at this point, that's a good guy to have there. Want to do a quick shout out, Mitch Kofsky. He's an Eagles fan. I did a live stream, kind of a collab with him. Good game. Thanks for popping in here. Ended up being a close game. Definitely was a good game, right? Didn't we draft Isaiah Simmons to go against tight ends like number 88?
We drafted him to do a lot of things.
Yeah. I think part of the problem is that we've talked about this. They're trying to ask too much of him. They haven't kind of let him settle into one role and then build off of that. But he's struggled. That's been maybe one of the more disappointing things about him, is that he hasn't done as well against tight ends as I would have thought he would. We've got, Dominic asking a question. Do we blitz too much? We have one of the higher blitz rate percent in the league. I feel like I see a lot of opponents' success in the mid-range.
Context, I think we did it 17,000 times against the Chiefs week 1, and we've toned it back each and every week, right? So I think overall that blitz percentage is still going to be there, but I feel like we definitely didn't do it as much. And then there was a really nice 3rd down and 10 or something like that from the 40, and here comes Byron Murphy off the edge and sacks him. Actually, I think he got a half sack, and JJ might have gotten a half sack or something like that. But took him out of field goal range and dropped them at the 50-yard line when they were going. So like, we've been more strategic, I think, when we've done it, because I haven't seen it as much. Definitely something I'm going to keep an eye on more. So that's a good call. Yeah,
I would generally agree with you, because like one of the things, and if you follow a lot of like some of the folks who talk about football, one of the things they're saying is there are a couple trends going on defensively in the NFL this season. And one of those trends is that teams across the board are blitzing less. And part of that is Mahomes it's been for a little while now that if you blitz him, he's going to beat you. And it's getting to be that with, guys like Josh Allen and in general, you see it less. And, first game, they blitzed too much, like you pointed out. And that was part of the reason we got beat as badly as we got beat. I'm not saying we would have won if we didn't blitz, but it might not have been a blowout. And Vance's system is a blitz heavy system. He brings pressure. Now, he's creative in how he does it. Like if you see those plays where you see all the linebackers come up to line of scrimmage and they all look like they're going to blitz, and then some of them back out. What he's doing is, yeah, he does it a lot, but that's actually a good strategy if you do it right, because what happens is if you can get the offensive line to not know where the blitz is coming, and if they have to account for someone who they think's blitzing but isn't, that's like having an extra man on the field on defense, if that makes sense, right? Because if they think a guy's coming, they set to block him, and then that guy goes out. In fact, we saw a play where Zaven Collins had a nice play where he did that and then backed out, and I think almost got an interception, if I remember, or something like that. So he does it well and creatively, but he is someone who brings a lot of pressure and blitzes a lot. And, a couple weeks into the season, one of the things I didn't really talk about, but that I kind of thought in my head and I was worried is Vance's defense going to be sort of a dinosaur in this new blitz less, league, right? Is in a league where they're blitzing less, is a defensive coordinator who blitzes so much going to be a liability. But I think you're right, Evan, and what's happened is he's become more strategic, because they did blitz, but when they blitzed, it didn't seem like they got totally torched on those blitzes, right? Maybe they got beat a few times, but some of them also led to good plays. So I think they've been more strategic about it. So right now, in the overall tally of how many times they've blitzed, yes, they've blitzed too much this season, but it's heavily weighted by that Chiefs game, right? So that's a great question, though. Hold up. All right, Jody Lewis, we'll hold up. What's up? Yeah. Blitz more, but has less sacks. Yeah. That's an interesting one, because they've had this, everyone's been talking about that their pass rush win rate's been high, but they haven't been getting home on those sacks. But yeah, so I think I'm sorry, good.
Marcus Golden, he didn't even register a tackle. He has done nothing this year. Nothing.
I worry because he dropped that dumbbell on his foot, in the weight room, and that's why he was kind of injured. I know everyone thought he had that I need an extension fever, hold in fever, but it really wasn't that. Although they did extend him, so that's nice. But for him, but I love Marcus Golden. He's struggled, so I wonder how much of it is still that. But it's been disappointing, his performance so far, for sure. All right. Let's Coda Kid in here. You must be English fan. Your boys are 4-1. Congratulations.
Thanks, Coda. Thanks.
Congratulations. So okay. Why don't we talk about some of our studs and duds too? I think that's a good way to frame some of the positives.
Let's.
In fact, because we want to end on the positive, let's just get a dud or two out of the way real quick, and then we'll focus on the studs. So give us a dud, Evan.
Matt Amendola.
Okay. hate to kick it, man, when he's down, but yeah.
Yeah, tough. You're in the big leagues. You're in the pros. Tough. Matt Amendola, and then the first 12 to 15 scripted plays of the first couple drives. How about those? Are my two big duds of the game.
Yeah. That's I mean, that was tough. He was missing those field goals pregame. He missed that. So yep, definitely. I think that's a dud. I mean, Marco Wilson for me was the big one. We talked about a little bit earlier, right? And I'm also going to say this is a really specific one, but Cliff Kingsbury and his usage of Rondale Moore, but more in the first half, right? We talked about too many screens, right? So those are a couple of duds. Real quick. Come on, back to restate matter. Cards didn't get embarrassed, so you must have watched the wrong game, dude. They held in there. Yes, some things went wrong, but if that's an embarrassing game, you don't watch enough football, kid. All right. Anyway, be classy when you come in my chat, fellow friends from the other teams. But anyway, yeah. So let's get to the stuff. So the stuff that's more positive. So Coach, who's your first stud in this game?
Zachary Allen. Numero uno. I just had his stats up a second ago. 8 tackles, 5 of them for solo, a sack, 2 tackles for loss, a pass breakup, and 2 additional QB hits on top of that. Zach Allen is turning into he's turning into our best defensive lineman since Calais Campbell.
Yeah, it's looking like it, right? It feels like every week we're saying this, right?
Yep.
And that's a good thing to be saying, right? Every week, Zach Allen with another awesome game, right? I mean, he's got those tackle for loss, sacks, batted passes, all that. I mean, and you said we need to be on top of paying him, and I'm agreeing with that. In fact, I tweeted and retweeted, calling my shots or whatever. But like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I sent a tweet like we need to start talking about extending Zach Allen, right? And then I retweeted it like last week because he's continuing to show that. They drafted him in the 3rd round. He had some injuries early in his career. He played okay for stretches, PFF grades in the 50s, low 60s ish. And now like his PFF grades are in the 70s. He's playing really, really well. As much as we talk about how they need help on the defensive interior line, you get help. You start getting the help by keeping the guys who are good, right? That you draft. Right. And
get him for that second contract, baby. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. So, I miss Calais Campbell too. One of my favorite guys we've had. Right. And yeah, our defense starting to hold up. Right. So absolutely. He was on my list. I'm going to go with one Byron Murphy Jr. Dude was all over the place. Like he had like 3 tackles for loss, like where Hurst threw it quickly to a receiver or a running back on the sideline. And he was there to blow up the play and tackle 2 on a receiver, 1 on a running back. He was in on that sack with JJ Watt, a half a sack there. I'm looking for seeing what his PFF grade was. I didn't notice him in coverage much. It'll be interesting to see what he did there, but man, dude was a tackling machine. Murphy Jr. had just an outstanding game.
I've got one more dud that I need to get out of the way.
Okay, yeah, let's get that out there.
Arizona Cardinals season ticket holders that give their game away. They give their ticket away. How about that?
Right. Yeah, I mean, those Eagles fans were there in number, right? So that's frustrating, right?
Show up. I mean, I was listening to a local Cardinals podcast earlier this week, and they were talking about what it was like in Sun Devil Stadium back in the day when it was like all these Cowboys fans and everybody coming up. This is exactly what it felt like. Part of this is on us as fans. Part of this is on us and not showing up. Yeah, granted, we're a transient state in a transient city, right? That's happened since the beginning when Phoenix was obviously a city. It was discovered by people that came from the East, right? And guess what? That trend is not going to stop. It's a place to retire, a place to get away, and it's the perfect place for every other sports team other than us, apparently.
Yeah, and that's frustrating. Yeah, it's been that way forever. I mean, Arizona's kind of a transient place in terms of people, coming and going and moving from the Midwest, and it's frustrating though. Yeah, for sure. But if the team can start winning some more, that energy will help with that some. But yeah, that's a good call. So I had Byron Murphy Jr. as my last stud. Did you have another one you wanted to add to that?
I thought Jalen Thompson played a great game. Okay. I really like what I saw from him. Again, I liked what I saw from the interior line. I was really liking the holes that the offensive line was opening up for James Conner earlier in the game. I thought they were going to be able to rely on that a little bit more. But again, here's James Conner with a rib injury, I think it was, going out and didn't play in the second half. Now we're worried about him going forward. That's what was it? The Raiders game. It happened in the Raiders game as well, too, where he was out. And now it's this game, too. So it's just his usage. Like Cliff Kingsbury just put our players in ways that they can't be utilized to their fullest extent. James Conner's the type of player that gets stronger as the game goes on, right? So maybe we need to start off with speed at the beginning of the game. Maybe we need Darrell Williams, who also got injured, and Eno Benjamin. Let James Conner handle the short game, right? So everything between the 20s, don't have James Conner do it. And when you're in the 20s and short yardage, then put James Conner in and like actually save him. But let's get into Rondale Moore. Can we get into him and the actual positives that he had today? Like he went a whole 2.5 quarters where everything was behind the line, had like -3 yards off of like 10, 12 targets, whatever it was. And then all of a sudden he got one downfield and you're like, wait, what just happened? Then he got another one. And then he got a pass down the field. I think it was at least 20 plus yards. And he started doing a few things. Like, yes, everybody knows he has that talent. I called him a deterrence on offense because it just tempted Cliff to want to get too cute. Really didn't have to do with him, is where what Cliff was doing and how he was utilizing him. So, I mean, this is nothing new. We've been talking about this since the beginning of the season, even before, he even played games. But it was nice to see him in actual space this time. Unfortunately, we don't see Greg Dortch because of him. I really wish we could still get some more Dortch. I thought he could have been huge, but it was nice to see Rondale have a positive, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the first half I tweeted out, like, hey, listen, just let's not conflate things. It's not Moore that's the problem. It's Cliff's use of him. And early in the game, it was problematic. Like the way he was using him. And like we talked about earlier, because if all they're doing are screens, everyone hones it up. But like you said, he had that reception for 28 yards, right? A nice little running catch and a couple of plays past the line of scrimmage. And then, he converted that, was it 3rd and 17? Was it like with the screen pass? Like,
he got 18 yards on that.
Yeah. So, listen, I'm a believer in Rondale Moore's talent. To me, there's 2 questions: his health and how the Cardinals will use him. But we saw him last year, like a couple huge plays down the field, against the Vikings. But if all they're going to do is, only thing they're going to do is jet sweeps and screens, they're not taking advantage of everything he can do, and it makes it easier for the defense to hone in on him. So, but it was really nice to see him in that second half, start to get some positive yards for sure. Want to say hey to a few people real quick. Want to say hey to Lance, who is a good dude. He's a big believer in Cliff. Cliff did some nice things. I still think all those how he used Rondale Moore in the first half wasn't great, but I think he called a better game than he did a couple weeks ago. I want to say also hey to Coach Aaron Van Buren, who is not on board with the blame the ticket holders approach. You can blame them when the team is negligent. The front office coaching hires, maybe that's also fair. So. Yeah.
I mean, who are you? It's the ticket holders who sold their tickets to away fans. Yeah. So who else do you blame?
I think his argument is that the front office isn't giving ticket holders a product that's worth going to view is his argument.
So then just don't buy the tickets and let somebody else buy them. Yeah. Don't sell them to opposing teams. This ain't hard.
Yeah. So yeah. So yeah, that's been.
I'm the feisty one on the podcast. He's the one that's going to give you all the positivity.
Yeah, there you go. We're good cop, bad cop, right? So there we go. So yeah, I mean, okay. So moving forward, though, there are some positives here, right?
Absolutely.
And okay, the penalties were not as bad as they've been in the past. There were a couple, but I felt like the penalties. There was a false start, there was a holding or two. But it did not feel like they were egregious like they've been in the past. So I feel like the penalties are down a little bit. I think that's a plus. The defense played really well against a really good team. In fact, we were talking about this earlier. If the Cardinals offense wasn't stalling out and was keeping drives going, I think this defense would have only given up like 14 points. Like, if the Cardinals offense kept it going, maybe even scored another one of those drives, if you're in the first half in particular, if you keep stalling out on drives, you're putting and turning the ball over like they did with the interception, you're going to put the defense in a bad position. And for this defense, to do as well as they did against a really good team, I think that's a plus, right? Other things that I've got a few more, but I'll stop and give you a chance to either respond to those points or add a few more of your own.
No, you're completely right. Look, they actually look like an adequate NFL team today. There wasn't a lot of miscommunication. People weren't yelling at each other on the side. There wasn't a turnover, or there was the one turnover, but there wasn't a turnover by the other team. We lazily get on the field and have to call timeout right away or something like that. You know what I mean? I pointed to this at the beginning. So it looked like a more crisp game. It looked like they're starting to get their ducks in a row. Plays were coming in. Kyler was finally calling audibles at the 12-second mark on the play clock, as opposed to like 4 or 3 seconds left and then having to take a timeout. Like, none of that stuff happened today, and only 2 flags on us. I mean, those are the types of things that you really want to see moving forward, and they were able to do that. And this is a game that they could have won. Should they have? Debatable, considering injuries, hop, and yada, 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 and all that fun stuff. But this is a game they could have won. They didn't blatantly give it away on a multitude at a time. The defense didn't give up completely. You know what I mean? So those little intricacies, I think, are really going to pay dividends moving forward. I mean, obviously, when you only have 2 flags on you and you're not getting false starts left and right, and you're not having to burn random timeouts, that's a good thing. Because look, we were able to use them at the end of the game and get a chance to get the ball back. If we only had 1 timeout, the Eagles would have ran that all the way down, gotten their field goal. We would have never had a chance, right? So props to Cliff on that part, and Kyler being able to notice that. But everything I'm seeing on Twitter too, everyone's like, yeah, the fans are saying, yeah, the scoreboard and everything was first down. But then you're seeing NFL players retweet. So we're supposed to be watching what other people do. Is like, no, you're supposed to look at the so-and-so board to your left or to your right. The first down chains and the markers and whatnot. That's what you're supposed to look at. So
yeah,
take that for what you will, Joe.
Yeah. One more thing I want to add. I think, and we've talked about it a little bit, but I think this offensive line did a really good job giving up only 1 sack against a really good defense that puts a lot of pressure, right? I mean, and it's not just they only gave up 1 sack. Kyler was not running for his life all game. There were a few plays, right? But they did a pretty good job protecting him. There were, they're gonna get home a few times. They're gonna get through, right? But to have as much time as he had against such a good defense, across the board, I think you have to give this offensive line a lot of credit for playing a really good game.
Here's a fun fact.
Okay.
November 1st, 2022. You know why that's important, Joe?
You're going to tell me that's not our last home win, because it's probably been longer than that.
Oh Lord,
right?
no. I'm sure it was longer than that.
Oh no,
no.
that's yeah. No, that's in the future, isn't it?
Yep.
So I'm not even thinking. Yeah.
No, it's 3 weeks from Tuesday, and that is the official NFL trade deadline. Do you think Steve Keim is going to make a move?
Whew.
And our bye week isn't until like week 12 or something, so we won't even had our bye week yet, by the way.
I think that, man, I think there's an above average chance he'll make a move, because he does. That is what he does, right? We got Wolf saying pray for a pass rusher.
I agree.
Maybe we'll see an outside pass rusher. The way, I've been saying throughout the preseason, I don't think this team needs to get outside pass rushers, because I think someone's gonna, it's gonna work out with the guys we have. Someone would step up. It hasn't happened, right? So at this point you have to wonder. I mean, the interior pass rush has been solid, with Allen and Watt really have been solid. Gardeck has been getting pressure, but only 1 sack. So yeah, maybe, we're saying, let's trade Golden. I don't think that's going to happen. 1, no one's going to trade for him. 2, I just think that's not going to happen. But no Donnie Yates is the same thing. Pass rusher, trade AJ Green. You're like, no one's really going to trade for him. That's the tough part. If the Cardinals make a trade, they're trading a draft pick for someone, right?
Yep.
Or draft picks. So I could see a pass rusher. I don't think we'll trade for another cornerback. I think they're going to make do with the guys they've got. They've got guys getting healthy. Trayvon Mullen, they already traded for him. I could see trading for a receiver, but I don't know, but with Hopkins coming back, they might not do that. They're not going to trade for a tight end. I don't think they're going to trade for an offensive lineman. Maybe depth at defensive interior, but it feels like if they're trading for someone, it's a linebacker, inside, or pass rusher. I don't know. What do you think?
I would more look at the teams that are not good and who potentially might be on a fire sale. So you got to look at that first. And somebody like Montez Sweat or Daron Payne have been rumored quite a bit as being available. Those are two interior studs, or like a Quinnen Williams, who is also still not happy and wants out, which is surprising because they're actually winning now. Go figure. So you got to kind of look at the teams that are not good, looking to get guys out of there, like Atlanta. Grady Jarrett. I'd love to have Grady Jarrett on this team, right? So there are options out there, but always look at the teams that are that are on the downward trend, that are not going to be doing things right now. Anybody on Carolina that you might want, like, boom, that could be a potential as well too. So, but I think interior just anything with the Lions. If there is an upgrade at center, even, I would cut Rodney Hudson right now for an upgrade over Rodney Hudson, because he's probably going to be not on the team next year anyways, or debate if he even wants to play football. And do you really want a guy like that on your team anyways? So I would look at interior line and interior defensive line play. And then why not a middle linebacker, Joe? Does anybody out there have a middle linebacker? We could use another one.
Everyone's talking about first
Roquan. Exactly. Another bad team. Look at the Bears right now. Look at the Lions. I don't know if you want anybody from the Lions, though.
Man, that's just tough because, Zaven Collins is playing good football.
I was joking about the linebacker. We don't need another bit of linebacker.
Okay, good. Because, there's Q, Steve Keim, right? Y'all got any more of them linebackers?
Exactly.
Yeah. Replacement for Ben Neiman, he's graded actually reasonably well this season, but he had a little bit of a rough game. Like a defensive tackle like Daron Payne, I wouldn't mind that. Adding someone like, even though Watt and Allen are both playing well, let's get another guy in there to rotate, right? And get him, to even get more pressure. They're playing Lecky Fotu, who's playing better than he has in the past. But if you imagine if you could get a 3-stud interior defensive lineman, rotating those guys in there, putting pressure, that would probably free up those outside linebackers, so
imagine only having to rush 4 guys too.
Yeah. Right. And I think, I tend to agree with Mark, so I'm probably, do you want to, because if you trade for Roquan, then you got to pay him. Do you want to pay that much middle? We've already overcommitted. No. I think with middle linebackers, you draft those guys on day 2 or 3 and develop some of those guys. You don't keep throwing first round picks at them. That's my take. I think I could see that. I would say maybe if you let's say they traded for an interior defensive lineman, right? And they short that pass rush, and then maybe you just start giving some of those rookies like Cameron Thomas, some more reps, right? Myjai Sanders, get him out there, rotate those guys in more. If your interior defensive line's getting pressure, it's going to help those outside linebackers to get freed up a little bit more to get home on sacks. So, maybe
Zach Allen, JJ Watt on the edges, Rashard Lawrence, Daron Payne in the middle. You rotate in Lecky Fotu. You free up an additional linebacker for coverage, or you bring in Golden or Gardeck for to rush on the outside.
Well, what that would be interesting, because that line, because you're really talking about their nickel package, right? Because they do the 4-down lineman typical nickel package. But like usually on the nickel package, they have their outside linebackers as the ends, right? And what you've got there is a bigger defensive line, which might be a little better against the run, even though it's more late down stuff, but still people get runs on those downs. So I don't know. I might like that. Like line up those 4, have a really big but effective pass rush in the nickel,
I'm all about the lines, man. I want dominant lines, dominant lines. We've had the skill position players. We had the legendary Fitz. We've had Patrick Peterson. We've had dope quarterbacks. We've had dope safeties. We had Carlos Dansby and some great outside linebackers like Chandler Jones. We've had all these dudes. I want some dope interior defensive linemen like Darnell Dockett. Like, give me more of those dudes, please, 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 please.
Right, for sure. Yeah, I'm a huge believer in interior pass rush because interior pass rushers don't get as many sacks as guys on the outside, but even when they're not getting them, they are disrupting the game. They're getting in the face. They're forcing. They're rushing passes. They're messing up screenplays. They're wreaking havoc. So
yes,
like nine sacks from a Zach Allen is as good or better than like 12 sacks from an outside linebacker in terms of its impact on the game, right? So yeah, I'm a big fan of that for sure. We're going to kind of work our way towards wrapping up the stream. We talked about a lot of different stuff, the good, the bad, the ugly. So why don't we kind of work towards that? And thank you everyone who's been here. I haven't been able to say hey to everyone. Apologize. There are a lot of folks in the chat, so I can't get to everyone, but thank you all for being here. And thank you to Grandizer, who's always great supporting. He's thrown reminders in here about being a channel member and clicking like and subscribing. And Grandizer is a great supporter of content creators across the board. So why don't we kind of wrap it up with each of us give kind of our final closing comments on this game, and then we'll kind of get out of here.
Sure. So, as I said, they looked more competent today. The defense was able to pivot and make adjustments. This is one of the better offenses, holding them under 300 yards. I think you kind of need to check your reality there of what you legitimately thought. I mean, they only scored 20 points against us, right?
Mm-hmm.
The offense and the miscues at the beginning, need to change. But looking forward and looking ahead, if you look at who we're going to be facing and who those quarterbacks of those teams are, there's only 2 times this year you can say Kyler Murray will not be the best quarterback on that team. Like, one, it's the Buccaneers, who don't look like world beaters, but yeah, you can talk about TB12 being the GOAT at everything. And then probably Justin Herbert with the Chargers. You could say he's a more talented quarterback throwing the ball. After that, every single week you're going against Geno Smith, maybe Jameis Winston, Kirk Cousins. Matt Stafford doesn't look right. Jimmy Garoppolo twice. Like, Mac Jones, who's not a world beater. Russell Wilson. Like, you look ahead for the next 12 games, and there's only 2 of them where the quarterback will be better. And we can have an argument about Tom Brady this year versus Kyler Murray as well, too. That's arguable. So we're trending ahead. And everybody said if you are 3-3 by the time Hopkins gets back with that gauntlet, you are set up in good position. So, but here's the thing, Joe. Seattle's a must-win game for me. What about you?
Probably. I mean, I can still see a scenario with as much as our division is struggling where we can lose that game and even still win the division. So but like when you look at what this team needs to do, like we've been making progress. We need to win that game, right? That's a game we need to win. I guess what I'd say is it's not a must win from a wins loss chance at the playoff perspective, but from a momentum and showing that we're trending in the right direction. That, okay, last week we beat a team we were supposed to beat, right? And beat them. I would even say convincingly. It wasn't a blowout, but in the second half, we took a lead and held it. It was a convincing, legitimate win. This week, we held our own and had a chance to win against a team that many people think is the best in the NFL going into this week, or if not the best, one of the top 3. That's still progress. Next week, we're coming up against a team that's overachieving, but is not a great team, despite as much as they've been playing.
They have deficiencies, but they also have like DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, right?
Right. I think that's a team that has like a high basement. Like, they're never going to be like a 3 and whatever team, right? But they don't have the talent to be a legitimate contender, in my opinion. But it's a team with some talent, a decent coach who's going to keep them to a certain level of competitiveness. They're overachieving. But if the Cardinals are turning a corner or becoming the kind of team we think they are and hope they are, this is a game they need to win, right? In terms of from that the trajectory, right?
And you win that, you have some momentum. 4 days later, you get Hop. You get a chance on Thursday Night Football at home to do something. You win that too. We're starting to rock and roll, Joe.
Yeah. Real quick, I want to thank Back to Constitution for the super chat. Thank you so much. What's the deal with home games? Real quick though, of course, I want to say the quick. Evan, so let me real quick. I don't know what's up with home games. I know Evan's got to get out of here. I'm gonna close this out here. I don't know. Sorry. Actually, Evan, if you gotta go. Thanks for being here, everyone. Evan's got to get out of here.
Don't stop supporting, even if we're not winning a home game. Still get out and support your team.
Right.
That's all I'll say. Later.
Thank
Joe.
you, Evan. Good to see you. Okay, I don't know what's going on with the deal with home games. Like, a lot of those are games against good teams, but not all of them have been. I really have no idea. I don't know what it is. No idea. I wish I had even a theory as to what's going on with that. No theory. None at all. So yeah, Cardinals curse. Yeah, maybe it's a curse. But thank you for the support. I really have no idea. So yeah, let me kind of give my kind of takeaway. And Evan had to dip out, so thank him for hanging out with us. Big picture. This is frustrating. We had a game where we thought we could win. Our expectations, when you get to that point, when you're coming and you're driving and you have a chance to win in that fourth quarter, your expectations start to amp up. We might win this. We're driving. We're past the 50. We have enough time. We can get some plays. We can do this. We're moving the ball. And then it ends the way it did. And it's frustrating. It's disappointing. We had a chance to beat a really good team and we didn't. I absolutely understand that, right? You need to kind of take advantage of those. But when we take a step back, big picture, looking at the season, right? If you look at it, okay, we did not get blown out. We looked competitive. We had a chance against a really good team. This team is 2-3 in a division where the best team is 3-2. So we're not out of it. We've gotten through what is probably the toughest stretch of our season and come out 2-3. It's not where we'd love to be, but it's not the end of the world. And we're going into a stretch that's winnable. A lot of winnable games. Seattle, right? New Orleans, getting DeAndre Hopkins back. DeAndre Hopkins, Hollywood Brown. Holly Brown has looked really good so far. Getting those two, I know, we talk about that a lot. But like if we manage to go into that New Orleans game 3-3 and get Hollywood Brown back and then start winning from there, there's reasons to be optimistic. Yes, this team continues to struggle coming out of the gate. There are still some things to be concerned with, but the trend arrow is going in the right direction, right? So I think there are reasons to be optimistic. Of course I wanted a win in this game, but going into it, if they look competent, right? That is, going in, if they look competent going against the Eagles, which they did, that's a plus. I get it. Some people that's not enough, but yeah. So anyway, it's frustrating. It's disappointing that they lost. On to next week. Let's see what happens, right? So anyway, thank you all for being here. Sorry I couldn't get to all the comments. Again, there were a lot of people and such here in the comments. Couldn't get to everyone. But thank you for being here. It's just, yeah, I get it. We had a chance to win. We didn't. Here's hoping they pull it off next week. Here's hoping we start, getting on a better stretch here, right? And, good amount of positives. 3 is where I had them going. So it's lining up fair, right? So yes, everyone have an awesome week. Thank you for hanging out with us. We'll see y'all next time. Peace.